everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to take you through what it's like to run a cake business from home. So as you can see, I am in my home kitchen, and this is because our studio in Tel Aviv did close where I was originally filming. So I've had to bring all my equipment back home, and I'm going to be based here from now on, which is why you'll see some changes in the next few videos. But I thought it was a great opportunity to talk through what it is like running a cake business from home. So if you've been following my cake journey from the very beginning, you'll probably realize I've been in quite a few kitchens, an external kitchen, a studio, and now I'm back home. So I know what goes into running a cake business from your own place. I wish I knew some things before I started because it was a big learning curve for me. So hopefully this video will help you out should you wish to do the same. Before I get into my top tips, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel so you never miss a tutorial. And also YouTube will know that you're into baking and it will suggest relative videos for you to watch too. So my first tip of running a cake business from home is licensing. You want to do all the relevant legal stuff before you even start. So licensing works differently depending on where you're based. So I will do my best to give the general information, but my biggest advice is to speak to your local government or council because different rules will apply. For example, in the UK, there are different councils depending on where you live, and each council will have their own license to run a food business from home. I know that in America this is also possible. I have found out recently that actually in Canada it's not possible. So again, it really depends on where you're based. So just go onto the internet and look up how to register your home kitchen for a food safe business. Once you've done that, the next pieces of information will naturally follow. What you need to do for checkups, how often people will come and check, etc. So things like food labeling, fridge temperatures, etc. They may all be formalities that certain councils will do. So again, all that relevant information should be available depending on where you're based. Oh, and one point, don't be scared by this. When I got my kitchen checked, it was some really nice guy that came over and it was a really friendly chat. They're not out to get you, they're there to help. Just remember that, don't be scared. So once you've registered your home kitchen, now you need to think about insurance. So get personal liability insurance, which means if you hurt yourself in your kitchen, you're covered. And God forbid, if you sold a cake and someone got sick from it, then you're also covered for that. Insurance is absolutely critical, which leads me on to my next point. You're going to become self-employed because you're running a cake business. So whether it's a side job from your main job or if it's your full-time job, you need to be registered as a self-employed worker in order to do the accounts or legally, etc. So again, this will depend on where you're based, but you may need to open a business bank account, which is specific for self-employed people. I personally don't in Israel, but I know that in the UK I did actually have a business bank account. So again, research on the internet and hopefully you'll find the answers there. Going back to registering your kitchen and just in general working out of a kitchen, if you own your place and this isn't relevant for you, if you are renting, you have to check with your landlord that they are okay that you're going to be running a business from their property. There are certain laws with certain properties that you can't have businesses running out of. Now, within that, there's also a difference of running a cafe from your apartment where customers are coming in, which isn't allowed, or just cooking from there. But either way, speak to your landlords and make sure that it is okay for you to be running the business from home. That's a really important fact. So the boring stuff is now out the way. It's important, but let's be honest, the licensing is a little bit boring. Now let's get on to the actual cake stuff and working from your own kitchen. Now, I think the most important thing from working at home is to actually accept this new routine of life. Now, whether you're doing this full-time or alongside another job, it's going to become a routine, and it's so important to be organized and have your head in the right state of mind when you're working. If you want to run a professional business, then you have to treat your home as a professional space. So I remember for a couple of years I was working out of my home kitchen, and I very quickly got into the habit of rolling out of bed, washing my face, getting ready, but kind of staying in comfy clothes. And I can't advise strongly enough to make more of your morning routine to really start the day positively. For example, get out of bed, maybe shower, go on a short walk, get dressed, even put on some shoes, now you're ready to work, because you do the same thing if you're going to an office job. So why wouldn't it be the same just because you're working from your own home? For me, at least, that really helped me start the day in a positive way and made me focus on what I was doing. And it also just feels more professional as well. So avoid pajamas and slippers. So another piece of advice from one self-employed to another, make sure that you have restricted hours of working. When you're working from home, it's really easy to not stop working because you don't escape your work life. So for example, I could start baking in the morning, and then before I know it, I'm still doing things at 9 o'clock at night. And take it from someone who's been there, you don't want to be doing 18-hour days on your feet in the kitchen, especially when you then have to make yourself food, which is also an important part of the day, so don't forget to eat as well. So it takes a while to get used to separating working from your home kitchen to living in your home kitchen, but try and make that separation as soon as possible, because the sooner you do it, the better it will be in the long run. Now let's talk about space and where to keep things and how to keep organized in your home kitchen. Now, I don't know about you, but I have lots of baking equipment. I'm one of those people who have bought things all throughout the years and refuse to throw anything away just in case I bake a hexagon cake one day again. Now I'm lucky enough to have some space in the flat where I've bought some big plastic containers where I've put some baking things which I know I don't use on an everyday basis. And I've also had to build an extra cupboard to keep all my extra things that came back from my studio. For example, I've got lots of bowls, I've got spare turntables, sets of scales for when I host a private workshop or I'm invited somewhere else, because I didn't want to get rid of the equipment. So if you do need to purchase another small cupboard somewhere, it's worth it, because at the end of the day, it's your home and you don't want the cake business to take over your home. Now obviously you want most of the stuff to hand, so it will take over some of your kitchen. So just designate 1 or 2 cupboards for your cake equipment. So I've got one cupboard for all my ingredients, I've got one cupboard with all my decoration equipment, and to be honest, some of my equipment is actually in my regular cutlery drawers as well, because you know, you need things like teaspoons and spoons at the same time, but it really all depends on the space you have. I appreciate some people have small kitchens. I don't know if you remember my first few videos, but they were filmed out of my tiny kitchen, and yes, I was able to run a cake business from there too. I did have my cake boxes in a part in the wardrobe, but it's just me being practical with my space, and I was still able to keep my flat pretty much clean. So organization is key, even if you have to buy an extra cupboard and some extra Tupperwares. So I'll just briefly touch upon equipment. So there can be this crossover of buying professional equipment baking from home. So it really depends in what you're going to be doing. If you want to do large quantities of baking out of your kitchen, then it's worth investing in a larger mixer, even a freezer, an extra fridge, or even an extra oven, if you have the space, of course, because you don't want to just cram everything in, because it will also affect the quality of your work. You need to keep it organized and clean. When I was in my really small kitchen, I actually purchased a drinks fridge, and that became my cake fridge. And it was tall enough to actually fit a 4-tier cake in. So drinks fridges are also quite attractive. So I personally didn't mind having that drinks fridge in the lounge where I kept my cakes. So there's a little tip for you too. Now, the fridge, because I'm aware that some of you have families, other members in the house using the same fridge as you, but the fridge also crosses over with the licensing, because the health inspector will come and see the state of your fridge and what's inside. And I've also got a couple of tips for you of what you can do to keep your cake safe in a fridge that's being used for other things too. Number 1, regarding the health inspector, we're lucky enough that baking doesn't require too much watch. It's not like we're using raw meat, or I think the only ingredients at risk are eggs and milk, pretty much, like the dairy stuff. But in general, sugar and flour and butter and eggs are pretty safe ingredients. However, if you do have meat in your fridge, then put it onto a separate shelf altogether. Usually the bottom. That's something that I learned in the professional kitchens, that raw meat always goes on the bottom shelf just in case there's a leak. I would highly recommend blocking out a space in your fridge for where you put your cake once it's decorated, or a whole shelf if you have multiple cakes too. And then you'll know that that shelf is completely for your cakes only. Tell everyone in the house not to touch it, because you don't want anyone to go near that cake once it's decorated and done beautifully. Now, big tip here. If you're using a fridge that has other ingredients in, such as vegetables, etc., and you don't have a designated cake fridge like I was talking about, make sure anything open is wrapped or put in an airtight container. Nothing worse than having an open onion in your fridge and then having your cake there, and then the dairy actually absorbs smells. And take it from someone who has done this in the past. Thank God we tried it. It was actually a cream roll cake that I did at a cafe once, and there was a whole bowl of cut onion in the same fridge, and the cream tasted like onion, and it was gross. So I have lots of Tupperwares and I put everything inside, and it also just makes your fridge more organized. And then of course there's the freezer. Now, if you do decorate cakes like I do, you'll notice that I use the freezer a lot. It's worth clearing out a space or a drawer just so you can use for your cakes, whether you actually need to freeze sponges over time, etc., or just during the cake decorating process. Make sure it's de-iced often because you don't want any ice falling onto your cakes. And again, in the freezer, just keep different items separate. For example, meat separate, vegetables separate, and baked goods as well. So the last point I'm going to make is coming to your actual business. And I say this to everyone who wants to get into cake decorating: stay true to yourself and have fun. Cake decorating is a really, really enjoyable job. It requires a lot of physical work, a lot of mental work, and it is a lot of work to run your own business. But as long as you do everything I've said in this video and more if you do research online and find out some more information relative to your location, you will love it, I promise you. If you are interested in finding out even more details about running a cake business, including pricing, then Liat and I have released a new course recently of Advanced Cake Design, which I've put the link in the description box. And we go into great detail about turning your hobby as a cake decorator into a profitable business. So go ahead and check that out. That's all from me today. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you soon for more tutorials.